I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and today we're going on an 18-day trip, 18 days in August, and the 18 days were taken in 1994. And the trip was taken with my brother Jimmy, who is 2 years older than me. It covered about 6,000 miles, and in showing you this, my main object is to show you what you could do and what you could see in the way of cultures, history, scenic beauty, all kinds of interesting things in this U.S. and in only 18 days. We're going to start in Vandalia, Illinois. Well, let's go back. Here's Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and we're coming down this way, and here's Vandalia right about in here, and we're going to swing on down. We're going through Missouri now, Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, and up and right in here is the start of New Mexico. We're going to cross that and into the Four Corners country, and out to the Grand Canyon and up into some of the parks of Utah, and we're coming back through Colorado and Nebraska and so forth all the way back. I will show you some maps as we get to New Mexico, Utah, and New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. First up, Vandalia, Illinois. This is the old state capital, and that is a Madonna of the Trail, because we're on the old national road, which is Route 40. And in this state house, Abraham Lincoln was sworn in to practice law in Illinois. And in this same state house, he served, all they will tell you is somewhere in that area of the legislative chamber, he served in the legislature for the first time. And this is the Chief Justice room where he was sworn in to practice law. Next up, St. Louis, the Arch in St. Louis. This is the Arch to the Westward Movement, and under the ground, below the arch, is a beautiful museum and also a statue of Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson is one of the ones, probably the principal one that started the westward movement with the Lewis and Clark expedition. And from up in the arch, and yes, you can go up into the arch, you're, I think, 630 feet high at that point, and you can look down on part of St. Louis. And over this side, you're looking down on the Mississippi River. In the flood we had just a couple of years ago, the water was up to the top of these steps. All those cars and all that you see down there would have been covered with water of the Mississippi River flowing. It is a beautiful place, it really is, and that is the shadow of the arch. And I am up in about that portion of the arch taking these few pictures. Next up, Will Rodgers Shrine at Claremore, Oklahoma. We've gone down through Missouri and hit the turnpikes of Oklahoma, and this is where Will was going to build a sort of a ranch-style home on this ridge at Claremore. And before he got to do it, he was killed in Alaska with Wiley Post in a plane crash. He and his wife are buried right here. And that statue of Will on the horse, that horse is a very special one. That's Soapsuds, and that was one of his favorite horses. Oh, Will Rodgers, you can almost hear him say, we're the only nation on earth to ride to the poorhouse in a Cadillac. And the other one was, I never met a man I didn't like. Oh, Will. Problem with Will, before we leave him, I'm John Rodgers, and I spell my last name correctly, R-O-D-G-E-R-S, but old Will didn't put the D in, just didn't know how to spell it. Over at Tulsa is the Oral Roberts University. My brother expressed an interest in going over there and seeing what the heck that was all about. This is the hospital complex, and I don't know if it's in use now or not, but it was completely closed when we were there. And this is the prayer tower, and we went up in the prayer tower. And then we moved on down, still in Oklahoma, but to the Cowboy Hall of Fame at Oklahoma City. Now, the Cowboy Hall of Fame is on the northern edge of Oklahoma City, probably 2, maybe as much as 3 miles from the bombing in Oklahoma City that you've heard so much about. A lot of great Western art. This is Bursted's Immigrants Heading West. Now, that's not quite the title of it. I'm not sure what it is. But here is a trail boss leading the prairie schooners over the grasslands of the high plains. Great stuff. And outside is the full-size sculpture by Frederick Remington of 4 cowboys coming into town, and it's called Coming Through the Rye. And then James Frazier's great sculpture. This is the 16 or 18-foot version of it. The little model that he used to, that he actually did was there also. And Laura and James Frazier were great sculptors, and everything in this little building was done by them. And outside, Buffalo Bill and his horse are right by the area. It's probably the only area that I've ever seen where you can go see the graves of bronco horses. And then as we were heading into the Texas Panhandle, the sun was going down, and we stopped for the night. And now we'll be going into New Mexico. This is the Texas Panhandle right down through here. This will be our first stop, Clayton State Park, and we'll see dinosaur tracks there. And then this will be Corpuline Mountain, a cinder cone. Then we'll come over, and this will be the great Pueblo at Taos. And we'll swing over here, and then we come out this little stretch of about 30 miles of dirt road to get to Chaco Canyon right here. This will be a volcanic neck at Shiprock, and then we'll go up into the Four Corners. Now, I'll have another map as we get to Arizona. But first, out at Clayton State Park, it was a little dam built to make that lake. And about 10 years after the spillway was cut, they started seeing various and sundry and interesting forms in the dam, or the spillway. And lo and behold, the bulldozers, when they were cutting it, sliced right through what had been slate to find tracks of dinosaurs. And believe me, you do not have to use your imagination. They're all over the place. There you can actually see where 3 of the claws stepped down. They've identified about 8 different dinosaurs, all walked on their back feet, that were in this area. Now, here's a couple of people walking on boardwalks, and they ask you to stay on the boardwalks. But they say if you are willing to stay there all day and see the different shadings of the sun, that you can see as many as 500 tracks there. And in some places you can actually see where the dinosaur walked, not just one track. So that was sort of interesting. And then Corpuline Mountain. Now this is in the National Park Service. This is National Park Service land. I think it's a national monument. And that's the road going up, because you can drive up to the rim, to an area there, and then you can walk around the rim. This was volcanic action. That is a perfect cinder cone, probably one of the most perfect that you're going to see. And if you get up there and the weather is threatening, it really is a sight. and the weather was threatening the day we were up there. We're up on the rim now, and this is the crater, and you can walk down to that point also. But that storm was giving us a little scare here and there, because if it headed to us and lightning started, we were in a very vulnerable place. But it didn't get to us. Now, many times you can go up on Copulene Mountain and look under the old pines or junipers, and you can, you're not allowed to do this, of course, but you can get handfuls of ladybird beetles. These are the ones that eat aphids, so they're very desirable, but they congregate up there. And look at that storm. Luckily, it's passing us to the northwest. And then after we left there on our way to Taos, that same storm and a perfect rainbow. And then Old Taos. Taos is a pueblo, and it's outside of the town of Taos, which is sort of an artsy type colony these days. This building and the one that is to my back have been continuously occupied since the 1300s. Now, you pay money to go in here. They've gotten the word that they ought to be charging tourists, and they do. And then if you want to take pictures, then you have to buy a little permit. Actually, it's a little tag, and that costs you $5. So you spend a little bit of money here, but then you're free to take all the pictures you want. This was where the old church was. And back in here is in some of the dwellings. These things that you see here are ovens. And we've had bread and cookies out of those ovens. You see, my wife and I had been here years before. And this is the little chapel that is still there. Now, you won't see any of the inside. They ask that you not take pictures in there. And over the other side, there's a small stream running through, and over the other side of this stream are a few places you can actually go into parts of the pueblo where they are selling things in what essentially is one of the rooms of their dwelling. And looking back across, the little stream runs right through here, and that is their drinking water. They ask that you treat it kindly. Down at this end seems to be there's some keevers. Those are circular rooms used for ceremonies, and they ask that you not go into that part of it. But out here is where you can buy bread and cookies that have been roasted in those cone-shaped ovens of adobe. And this is called a ramada. Usually it will have brush on top of it. It's a little more formal here at Taos. And sometimes it's actually called a brush shelter. Just south of Taos is a church that has some of the biggest walls I've ever seen on a church. It's all adobe, and this is the Ranchos de Taos church. And then we're going across the Rio Grande through the gorge, what's considered the gorge of it, and we saw this lonely little old post office. If you're not familiar with it, this stuff around here is sagebrush. And the only dwelling we saw is that mobile home there by this little post office out in the middle of nowhere. We had to stop for horses to cross the road as we were moving over. Now, all of this road is paved. We are not yet to the dirt road that we will have to use to get into Chaco Canyon. This is just country along the way across northern New Mexico. This is a lake backed up by a dam. Beautiful country, beautiful clouds, neat stuff. And my brother really got a kick out of the Coon Holler Cafe. But you know, the Coon Holler Cafe provided probably the best French fries and the best hamburger and really good root beer, but the best of the other two that we had on the entire 18 days. It was open, it had some flies in it, you had to put up with a few things, but it was good food. But he still talks about that. And then we, shortly after that, within an hour or so after that, we headed into Chaco Canyon. And again, I got a rainbow. This one is not as colorful as the other one. But Chaco Canyon is 30 miles off the paved road. You pass a little trading post, and then you're on your own. And you get back into this is national park land. This is a national historic park of Chaco Canyon. There are at least 17 separate ruins back in Chaco Canyon. And you can go to all of them. We couldn't, because we had to get out of there because of the prospect of rain, and the driving on some of these back roads is like driving through gumbo if the road gets wet. And so the only accommodations in there are camping, and we were prepared for that. We had sleeping bags with us, but we didn't want to have to use them. This is the back of Pueblo Bonita. Pueblo Bonita means beautiful village. And in a previous trip out there, my wife and I hiked the mile, a mile and a half, to get on top of the cliff where you could look down on Pueblo Bonita. From here to here is about 500 or 600 feet, I'm not sure what. And these circular buildings, are some circular rooms, are some of those keevers that I was talking about that are used for religious ceremonies. Back down on the ground in Pueblo Bonita again. You keep watching those storm clouds as we were doing, and you wonder, how much time do I have before I can get safely out of this place without bogging down? And you're really watching yourself. This is one of the very large keevers. These would have been covered over probably with beams, which would be tree trunks, and then brush would be used to cover them. And that's where religious ceremonies were held. Here's a smaller one here. And as we were leaving, we got out before the rain really hit, but that's a sunset, and we found out it really hit, because the next night we were over in Arizona, just about at the same latitude, and they had had a flood from that storm. But before we leave New Mexico, here is Shiprock. Shiprock is a volcanic neck. The whole cone shape has eroded away, and it stands at 7,178 feet in elevation. Now that's above sea level, but it is really high. This picture is taken from about 2.5 miles away. So you're looking at a big rock. And it gives its name to a little town on the Navajo reservation called Shiprock, New Mexico. Note these formations here. If you had those around in our part of the country, they would be, you would have tourists coming to see them for miles around. Now I found this, which illustrates very good what the Colorado Plateau is about. So I put it in. Now, we will be going to the Four Corners here and then on down into Arizona. You can stand on that one spot, right on that plaque, with your feet in such a way that you're standing in 4 states at the same time. And that's sort of interesting. Now, if you look in different ways, can you tell that I'm looking out into Utah there? No, I didn't think so. I just took pictures looking at the different directions. Now this one, where I have the Four Corners back in sight, the mountains over in the distance are in Colorado, and this part is in New Mexico. The part that I'm taking the picture from is in Arizona, and then the part out this side is Utah. Now that's up here, and we're going to drop down here. This will be Canyon de Chelly. We'll go down to Hubbell's Trading Post. We'll talk about the Hopi Mesas as we get there. See, all of this is Navajo Reservation. Then we'll go over to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and come back up this way on our way up to Zion in Utah. And then I'll have another map for you at that point. This is Red Mesa. And that's what a lot of this country looks like when you're going down the road. You'll find a ridge of rock in the distance, some beautiful clouds. Quite often the clouds are just gorgeous. And we've come to Canyon de Chelly National Monument. Now this, if you're looking at this on a map, it is spelled D-E-C-H-E-L-L-Y. And it doesn't look like Canyon de Chelly at all, but that's what they call it. We're at the south rim of it now. This is part of the National Park Service. This is a national monument. But this is a different kind, because you are not allowed down in it except in one place unless you are with a park ranger or a Navajo, because they still farm the land down in the canyon. Way down in that little spot are the White House ruins. And this stuff that you see here down the sides of the cliff is called desert varnish. Now these are some of the old dwelling places of the Anasazi, just like at Chaco Canyon. Now if you were looking around to find out, well, where did the Anasazi go, the ancient ones, you probably wouldn't look at the Navajos, because the Navajos have always been nomadic. Not necessarily now, but they've been nomadic, and that wasn't the way that the Anasazi lived. So you would probably look into Zuni, you would probably look at the Hopis, some of the pueblos along the Rio Grande, maybe even Taos Pueblo. That's where they would have come from. I forgot to tell you, when we were coming out of Chaco Canyon, all of that was vacated by about 1100 AD, whereas the Mesa Verde lasted until about 1300. Now these strange formations that you see here, those are petrified sand dunes. If you've never seen those before, and not too many people have, you don't even think of a sand dune petrifying. But notice a little Chinle wash goes through here, and you can see some nice green trees down there. Many of those are cottonwoods, and there'll be junipers and tamarisks down there as well. But these are high cliffs. These will be a couple of thousand feet in different places. The place where you are actually allowed to go down, it's only about 700 feet, but you walking on a switchback trail, and then you bog your way across Chinle Wash to get into the White House ruins. We're all the way to the east on the road now, and you're now seeing Spider Rock. Spider Rock is named in honor of Spider Woman, who was one of the featured ones in the origin legends of the Navajo. And Spider Rock is about 840 feet high. It's no small thing. See, that would be higher than the arch in St. Louis that we saw earlier. Just beautiful country. That it is called the Canyon of Colorful Walls. And in the northern canyon, which is Canyon del Muerto, is where, to his everlasting shame, Kit Carson rounded up the last of the Navajos and sent them over to what amounted to a concentration camp on the New Mexico-Texas Panhandle border. Well, maybe it wasn't quite at the Panhandle, but it's that type of country. We're at the north rim now. That is Canyon del Muerto, or Canyon of Death. So it is named partly because of Kit Carson's actions there. A lot of people were killed, and partly because the Spaniards had killed women and children in Skull Cave back then. Skull Cave or Massacre Cave. I have trouble keeping the two separate. But we have dropped on now down to Hubbell's Trading Post. This is not a place where you will spend a tremendous amount of time, but it is an interesting place because the Indians used to bring their goods in here. Their goods might be sheep or goats, and they would pen them up here until they arrived at a trading price and so forth. And then you can buy different things there. You can see Navajo ladies weaving and so forth. But then you go out across, heading towards the Grand Canyon. And now I'm in the Hopi reservation, and I'm not allowed to take pictures. So what you're seeing is one that I got from either a postcard or Arizona highways. This is the road that most people use to go across the Painted Desert. If you do not get off of that road, you never see this other stuff. This is a little town here, and this is the town of Walpi. Walpi has been continuously occupied since the 1300s. And that's just a little bit of land there to drop off, so maybe 400 or 500 feet. But what you do, I think you go into this spot, and there is a visitor center there, and they assign you to a group, and they will not let you go out to Walpi. This is Walpi anymore. But my wife and I had occasion with a Futures for Children group years ago to eat lunch in a home right back here in Old Walpi. Now that is on the first mesa. This picture was taken on the middle mesa or second mesa. The mesas are numbered over from east to west. And now we are over in the area of the third mesa, and this is where Old Oribe. And Old Oribe is really not too much to see there, but it has been occupied since the 1100s, I believe, 11 or 1200s, and it's considered the oldest continuously occupied village in the 48 states. But this one is Mount Muncopen, which happens to be one of the layers in the geological term, a layer in the Grand Canyon. Muncopen is over on that side of it. And as you leave there, you're really heading now for the Grand Canyon. This is the gorge of the Little Colorado River. The Little Colorado will hit the Big Colorado just shortly before the Big Colorado goes through the Grand Canyon. And now the Grand Canyon. And I get a little carried away with the Grand Canyon, so I'll just keep moving the pictures through. Now, we only went to the south rim, so everything you see will be on the south rim. Part of it, we will have used the shuttle over to the west, and other part, we were driving out, and we would have stopped at a few overlooks from our vehicle. It's really hard to know where to stop photographing when you're in the Grand Canyon. Everything looks so interesting. Little stacked clouds and the rest of the sky clear. Here's a trail going out there. It looks like it goes out to that point for a view, and then I think that trail swings back. My wife and I have only been down into the canyon on the Kaibab Trail, we went down about 1,200 feet. But there's the inner gorge all the way down there. We thought we had the stamina to go all the way down to the river, but the morning we were going to do it, by about 10 o'clock, it was already 130 degrees in the inner gorge, and we knew we could not do it with that. So we dropped down about 1,200 feet out to a place called Cedar Ridge, and that's as close to the bottom of the Grand Canyon as I have ever been. Just an absolutely fascinating place. Now you can see a little bit of the river winding through because we have left the shuttle area and the place where you stay and are moving to the east again. Because in order to get around and up into to Utah. That's the Bright Angel Trail, and that's the one that you would use if you were going down on the mules. But you have to get your reservation, and sometimes as much as 2 years ahead to actually get a place on one of the mules. And I never know where I'm going to be 2 years. I don't even know where I'm going to be a week ahead of time. And certainly on this trip, my brother and I didn't know where we were going to be. This was sort of planned as we went along. Of course, I did the planning because I'd been in all the places before. There's the Colorado River coming through. Look at the whites now that add their brightness to it over on this side. But you could take that picture, say 12 times during the day, and all 12 would look different because of the shading of the sun. And finally, we're leaving now, and this is a view looking south. Those are the San Francisco peaks, north of Flagstaff, Arizona. The highest there is over 13,000 feet. And this is a holy mountain for the Navajo, for the Zuni, and for the Hopi. And we're going now all the way up into Utah, and first we will go alongside of the Echo Cliffs. These are the Echo Cliffs, and later we will hit another set of cliffs. They're really bright, but I mean you really want air conditioning when you're going through here. It really gets hot. And it's much more pleasant if you have the air conditioning. We're over now into the Vermilion Cliffs, and we will follow those along for miles. They stretch and stretch and stretch. Notice the lack of vegetation on this. Not much in the way of moisture. Okay, and finally we're coming up right here, and we're going to Zion. This is the part of Zion that most people see. I'll also show you a picture from over on the range of mountains. Actually, it's a canyon, I suppose, Golub on here, and then we will go to Cedar Breaks National Monument, Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef. I got a special thing for here, so I'll let that one go. And we will come down here into the goosenecks of the San Juan River and on down into Monument Valley down in here. And then we'll come back up this way and go to Canyon in the Sky part of Canyonlands and Arches. Okay, we are in Zion now, and that's Checkerboard Mesa is what it's called. Zion is high walls and very narrow passageways, but it has a lot of vegetation in it because of a stream coming through. That's the Great White Throne. Now those two pictures look quite different, and they were taken within about 2 hours of each other. We're out by the visitor center now. Notice the cactus in the foreground, and we had just come in from out in that area. Then we went around on the western side, and these are the Golub Canyons which most people do not see. They don't even realize they're there, and you cannot get to them without going out on the highway to swing around that way. We spent that night in Cedar City, Utah, and the next morning we started over towards Cedar Breaks National Monument and saw all these sheep on the hillside. Then we got held up by a little road construction, so I took one of my artistic type pictures of Aspen. And then finally we got to Cedar Breaks National Monument. This is a little one that not too many people go to. It's sort of a miniature miniature Bryce Canyon, but it's a beauty spot in its own right. It really is quite neat. And at this one, it is very easy to see something that at Bryce you have to hike about 1.5 miles to see. I'll show it to you in just a moment. This is all looking down. There are not too many viewpoints of Cedar Breaks, but you really can see down into it. And this is the thing I was telling you about. This is bristlecone pine. Bristlecone pine, that species contains the oldest living thing in the world. It's in the White Mountains of California, north of Death Valley, and it's a tree called Methuselah. Methuselah is something in the neighborhood of 4,400 years old and still living. Well, you're looking at a tree that is a mere youth. It's only about 1,500 years old, but it is bristlecone pine, the same species. Then if you have never seen a lava flow, a great lava flow on the back road going from Cedar Breaks over towards Bryce Canyon, if you take this road, there was a huge lava flow stretching for miles that went over there. And finally you come into Bryce Canyon National Park. You're viewing it from a ridge on the west, and you're looking more or less to the east when you're viewing Bryce Canyon. Erosion on a grand scale. And all of these are from viewpoints on that one road as you go down. We could not go all the way to the end of the road because they had construction and it was stopped. But I think my brother got a pretty good idea of what Bryce Canyon is all about, and it is really neat. Bryce Canyon has also a lot of the shadings and a lot of the colors that you see are caused by the position of the sun. But it's a never-ending spectacle. And you can also go down on some of the trails. And talking back about a previous trip, my wife and I have been down in the Queen's Garden, which gives you another perspective on visiting Bryce Canyon. But my brother and I stayed up on the top, on the ridge, right by, actually not far from the car at any time, just a few hundred yards away perhaps. But it's an unbelievable array of spires and all, and look at the white, how it shows through against this red right in the middle, and just brings out all kinds of neat tones. And yes, they have names for a lot of these formations, but I just don't remember them. Surprising number of trees in some of these pictures. And that little fella even got up on that branch for me to take his picture. That's a chipmunk. Now that formation on in the distance is outside of the National Park, and we will be going on the other side of that to get up to Capitol Reef, which we'll be heading for in a moment. About a little deer. Still got the markings on the side, the little spots. And now we have left Bryce Canyon, and we're on our way up to Capitol Reef National Monument. The drive through here is spectacular. You feel like you're on the top of the world, going through the national forest and on up into the canyon country. Just really great stuff. And over there are the Henry Mountains from the west. And we will see them later as we go on the far side of them down towards Monument Valley. But we're still heading, we're starting to see some of the parts of Capitol Reef, but we're not quite in it as yet. This is the first picture in Capitol Reef, this one with the boulders on it. This is not a very well-developed park from the standpoint of tourism, but it is an interesting park to go to, and you can go on down and go in off the paved road into some of the canyons and really start to get a feel for what some of the canyons are like. And we did just that. You can see that is not exactly a paved road. Sometimes I look at that picture and I wonder, you mean I took my van down into there? And yes, I did. Got back out too. But some of it was those cliffs really tower above you. And you can see all the layers. See, this was laid down by the sea, and that's how it got Capitol Reef. Part of it was actually a reef in an ancient inland sea. And now we have gone out beyond it and made the cut, and now those are the Henry Mountains, looking at them from the east. And I, being a Sierra Clubber, usually refer to this place as Reservoir Powell. The rest of the world calls it Lake Powell. It's caused by the Glen Canyon damming of the Colorado River. The Colorado is flowing through there. We'll be going over that bridge to get to our next spot. That's a marina down on the opposite side there. And then I told you I had one spot that I wouldn't tell you anything about. That is Fry Canyon. Fry Canyon was an unusual experience. There are no motels over in this neck of the woods, and yet we needed a place to stay because we wanted to go to Natural Bridges the next morning. We didn't want to go too far. And so people told us, well, go down to Fry Canyon. Well, can we call them to see if we can get any reservations? No, they don't have a phone. They don't have electricity. They don't have water and all. They have to provide all of that for themselves. So they have a power generating plant and all. And man, we got in one of the rooms. I think they have about 5. And the lady cooked food for us. And we just sat at the counter and watched her cook it. And they have hummingbirds. They had probably, my brother said he counted something in the neighborhood of about 65 hummingbirds. You can see this little guy is coming into a feeder, and those wings are going a mile a minute. Just a beautiful sight. So he was counting them while I was trying to take pictures of some individual ones. But it was quite an experience there. It was sort of hot. They didn't have air conditioning. They just had a fan, and it wasn't all that great. But it was just that we still talk about it anyhow. And then we went down to Natural Bridges National Monument. This is part of National Park Service. Somewhere out there is a natural bridge, and here you can see the natural bridge. See, a natural bridge is carved by water. An arch can be carved by water, but a lot of it is wind-blown sand. There's a bridge over there. There are 3 natural bridges in this national monument. There's one right in there. And you can see that one, it's stretching across. That one is not very thick. That may fall in my lifetime, so you better get out there and see it. And then we went on, and we're dealing now with the San Juan River, and this is a place called Muley Point. Muley Point is not quite as spectacular as one you're going to see in a moment, but it's kind of interesting. Looking on over there quite a ways, and looking down, you can see a Jeep road down there, a four-wheel drive vehicle road down from Muley Point. And that mountain that you see off in the distance, that mountain is Navajo Mountain. And Navajo Mountain is about 70 miles from where I'm standing taking this picture. And there's a little bit of the San Juan River down in the bottom of that. Now we have to, this is marked on the map, and they have a sign telling you 20 miles ahead you will find this dirt road that will take you down in switchbacks down this whole drop, and we're going to that road that you see down below, but we got to drop down to it. Actually, it looks pretty good at this point. You can see an RV right down here. It looks pretty good, but it is not paved. It is dirt and gravel, and you just wind your way back and forth until you drop down. Here's part of the road we're going to cover, and we still have to get all the way down to that road. So that was quite an interesting ride down, kind of neat. Now we are at Goosenecks, which is a Utah State Park. This is Goosenecks of the San Juan River. And the river comes in this way and swings, and it goes around that rock and around this rock, and then it goes around that rock and then goes off through the canyon there. It is so big that even with my wide-angle lens, I cannot take it all at one time. And you're a couple of thousand feet up above the river at this point. Just a glorious place. Now this is just a single shot of one of those, and if you look off in the distance there, you can see some of the formations of the next place we're going, which is Monument Valley. But first, Mexican Hat. As a matter of fact, we went down through Mexican Hat, got a bite to eat, and went on down into Monument Valley. Now, Monument Valley is a Navajo tribal park. This is not a national park. And if you think you've seen some of these before, you probably have, because a lot of these formations were in a lot of the old Western movies. John Wayne used to come into Monument Valley regularly to do pictures through here. So when you pay your money to go in here, you're paying it to the Navajo Nation. So remember that we have come in through Utah, but most of what we're seeing is actually in Arizona. That big formation there is the totem. That's the one here. And then these are sometimes they call them the Three Sisters, but their local joke is that there's faith on one side, charity on the other, and very little hope in between. That's their joke, not mine. But it is it's quite a gorgeous place. We did see one coyote in there, not too much in the way of wildlife, but one coyote scampered ahead of us and disappeared before anybody could get a picture. And then, because if you're driving yourself, they don't let you go to the petroglyphs in Monument Valley. You have to be guided to do that. But I knew of another place where I could show my brother petroglyphs, and so we are there now. It's called Newspaper Rock. It's very small, but it's a Bureau of Land Management area. And here are some of the close-ups of the petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are carved into the stone, pictographs are painted on. And notice the goats and so forth. And heaven only knows what this guy is. But all kinds of things. I don't see the humpback flute player. Quite often you'll see him. Cocopelli is his name, and he's featured in a lot of them. Then we were making our way on up towards Moab, and we're going to go see a few places there. But here was an arch right alongside the road. All you had to do is pull off and just get out of your car and look. You didn't even have to get away from your car. Then we settled for 2 nights in Moab and went out first. We were going towards Canyonlands National Park, the island in the sky part. But you normally, at least I would suggest, go out to Dead Horse Point State Park, which is a Utah park, and you can get these kind of views. That is the Colorado River swinging around the formations there before it makes its way. It's flowing from that way around this way, and it's going on down to where the Green will join it, the Little Colorado will join it, and then it will go through the Grand Canyon. This is looking south. And that's the river again. And here's one of the 4-wheel drive vehicle roads. But it's just magnificent views from Dead Horse Point State Park. The way it got that strange name, they used to trap horses. They used to herd wild horses out there and trap them, and then open up the whole thing and run all the ones they didn't want back off, and somebody forgot to do it. And the horses couldn't find their way and died of starvation. And that's how it got Dead Horse Point. We are now in Canyonlands, the island in the sky part of it, and we're down at Grand View where the road stops. If you love canyon country, boy, this stuff out of Moab will be exactly what you're looking for. These monoliths here, these are several hundred feet high. These are no small things. That's taken with a long lens. And again, the shading from wherever the sun is has quite an effect on what your picture is going to look like. Those are the Henry Mountains in the background again. Just a fantastic place there, the island in the sky. We're over now, and somewhere out in there is the Green River. We'll see it in a moment. See, the sun right now is behind a cloud, or partially behind a cloud, and you get a completely different view of the terrain. That's the Green River over in here. Not the strip of green there, this little strip just beyond the green. The Green River originates in the Wind River Mountains up in Wyoming. And I'm right at the edge of a canyon looking under an arch. Now these are not the Henrys there, those are the mountains over in Colorado. And there is somebody standing on the edge of that. There is a drop-off on the far side of that arch of something like, I would estimate about 600 feet. And yes, I have been on top of that arch. So has my wife. And then still out of Moab, Moab is an old Mormon town, still out of Moab, we're at Arches National Park. And this is called Park Avenue, these forms. Now here you tend to get some silhouettes. That to me looks like a vulture sitting there. You use your own imagination. And here is called the Three Gossips. And now we are seeing our first arch in arches. That is Delicate Arch from a distance. You can hike into Delicate Arch, and my wife and I have done it. My brother and I didn't think we wanted to use that much time because we had held back and used a lot of time on in the canyons all over the place, Zion. But that is Delicate Arch, and that is somewhat of a symbol of the park. This, in the morning, this will look more like its name. This is called the Fiery Furnace. And those rocks really glow red. And this is Skyline Arch. This is up by the campground. And then note the silhouettes as the lighting changes. When my family first went to Arches, it did not have national park status. It was a national monument. See the arch right in here. This is Landscape Arch. Now from that point over to this point is about 304 feet. And at one point it's only about 5 or 6 feet through. So I've told many audiences that I believe that one's going to fall in my lifetime. And every once in a while they'll come out in the middle of the day and you don't know when to expect them, a deer, right on the path going out to Landscape Arch. This is a fairly good sized balanced rock. I think that one's been estimated at about 20 to 22 tons. And then this was the first time I had seen Turret Arch. For some reason or other, my wife and I had never gotten out to it. And then you turn and look over to the other side, and you see the windows, or they're called the south and north windows. The north is to the left, the south is to the right. And back in the same area, but back across the road, you will see Double Arch. You can get an idea. There are some people right in there, so you can get an idea of this. And there is a single person silhouetted under the far arch in there. My brother is walking ahead of me into Sand Arch, and the walking is really tough in here. Then we left that and headed over towards Grand Junction, Colorado, and saw rafters on the Colorado River. I had told him that from Grand Junction, probably the fastest way for us to get home is to stay on the interstate. And then I decided, well, you saw the dinosaur tracks down in New Mexico. I think you should see some of the dinosaur bones up in Utah. So we headed back north again. This is the pronghorn antelope. That's the fastest land animal in North America. It can hit 50 miles an hour for short burst. And finally we got up into Utah again, and this is the Dinosaur Quarry, our visitors center. And you can go in here and you can look at all the dinosaur bones that are lying right where they were found. They had found it's hard to say they had found a new dinosaur in Dinosaur National Monument, but this is the first time that this particular dinosaur has ever been found. And so they got to name it. And I can't even remember what the name is. But looking straight across from you, you can see all the bones that have been uncovered, and there are many. And certain of the people there can probably identify and tell you what kind of dinosaur these bones belong to. See, when the Rocky Mountain uplift came, a lot of it was tilted, and that great slab that those bones are in was tilted, so that's why you see it as you do. We're in Colorado again, and we're heading over to Rocky Mountain National Park. A couple of pronghorns stopped to look at us. And we've gotten over into Rocky Mountain National Park. My brother had been out with me about a year before, and this was one of the things that he wanted to repeat. He wanted to repeat that arch in St. Louis and then Trail Ridge Road in Rocky Mountain National Park. The morning we left Granby was just fogged in. We thought we weren't going to see anything, but were we wrong? We saw these beautiful little clouds in front of the mountains. We saw everything just as clear as a bell. This is Paudry Lake here, and we're now over into the Atlantic drainage, and we're almost at 12,000 feet. The road there goes to 12,183 feet. And right in the middle of this picture, this little guy here, he's a piker. He is a member of the hare family, and he does not hibernate, but he lives at timberline. So he harvests grass and cures it into hay and takes it in his burrow. He slows down in the wintertime, but he does not hibernate. See, we are up well above timberline now. We're in terrain called tundra. Very short growing season, very small flowers, no trees, just real great stuff. Clark's nutcracker, camp robber. He loves silvery things, and he does not distinguish between aluminum foil and sterling silver, for instance. If he can lift it, he'll take it back to his nest if you left it. We're going down the eastern side now. Here's another one of those little characters, a chipmunk. And I was amazed, it was still August, and in the high country we saw aspen already turned to gold. Just beautiful. Now, I can't see the crest on this guy. I think he's a scrub jay. If he has a crest on him, he's a Steller's jay. If he doesn't, he's a scrub, and I believe he's a scrub. And then we saw, my brother had talked about elk, and we saw elk. We saw about 25 elk just shortly before we left the park. Boy, what a difference between those two pictures. We're out along the Oregon Trail in Nebraska. The Oregon Trail and the Pony Express ran through here. And this is old Fort Kearny. Now that is a reconstruction, but they have the map of everything where it was, and there's a, here is the map of old Fort Kearny. Now Kearny, the town, is on the north side of the Platte River, a little further to the west. But this is where the fort was that was built to guard the Oregon Trail. And those markers are where some of those buildings that you just saw on the map are. And that flagpole out there is in the exact same spot that the old flagpole was. Now, I won't give you time enough to read the Susan O. Hale grave. I'll take you out to it. That marker is about a mile from the grave itself because it's out on the prairies. And this lady was, it says something about being poisoned by water, drinking water poisoned by the Indians. But most likely she died of cholera. Indian problems on the trail were mostly out in Idaho. But here is this little grave out in the middle of the prairies and nobody around it at all. Now the marker on the right is the Oregon Trail. The marker off on the left is the Pony Express, side by side, because they mostly ran the same route. We've come over into eastern Nebraska now, and this is the Rock Creek station. That's the bridge. This is the old Oregon Trail. The Overland Stage ran through here, and the Pony Express ran through here. And that is the only building, to my knowledge, that is still there at Rock Creek. And we've dropped down into Kansas at this point. And this is the old relay station of the Hollenberg station. It's an old ranch house. And the Pony Express ran there. Right across from it is a whole field of sorghum. And don't forget, the Oregon Trail had run for years right by the Hollenberg station. As you make your way over towards Marysville, you see one of the best monuments to the Pony Express that I have ever seen. And so I've photographed it several times in passing. It really is a reminder. And in Marysville itself is the last remaining home station still on site. A home station would provide horses and riders. So this is where the rider would change. The Hollenberg station, which incidentally that we just passed, the Hollenberg station is the only relay station still on site, and it would have only horses. And at this point, I'm over on the eastern side, but at this point, the first thing the Pony Express rider had to do was get on a barge and get across the Missouri River right in the background. And then he was on his own, and he was running with that horse the rest of the time. Here's the mighty Missouri River that he had to cross before he could really get going. But here's the Pony Express stables at St. Joseph, Missouri. This is the easternmost side of it. The route was 1,966 miles. Coming over towards the Mississippi now, this is the Mark Twain area. This is Tom Sawyer is the word I'm trying to get out. This supposedly is where Tom Sawyer lived. This is the whitewashed fence here. This is the Becky Thatcher home there. Tom Sawyer, and Mark Twain for that matter, would be appalled at a formal garden there. They wouldn't have known anything like that. And downtown is the Huck Finn Tom Sawyer statue. Would you believe that thing has been almost covered by flooding of the Mississippi River from time to time? And up on the heights is the old man himself, Samuel Clement. And here's what he's looking at, the mighty Mississippi that he loved. And the final place is the Air Force Museum at Fairborn, Ohio. My brother had been a navigator on a flying fortress, and he wanted to find this marker, the 486th bomber group. B-24s there, but he was B-17s. And they flew out of England over Germany in World War II. That's what he was looking for. And here is he said that this was the exact model of B-17 that he flew in. This is one that was found in France not too long ago, the Shoo 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 baby. And so I took a picture of that. He actually showed me the panel where they used to have to climb up to get in the darn thing. And then right there is Boxcar. Boxcar now is a B-29, and Boxcar is the B-29 that dropped the bomb on Nagasaki, the second atomic bomb. But I have just a few pictures just to give you a little recap of our trip. The Pueblo Atolls, Canyon de Chelly, and I actually have two in Canyon de Chelly. I really like Canyon de Chelly. This is Spider Rock. Then just one, how did I do that? Just one of the Grand Canyon and one of Bryce Canyon and Monument Valley. Canyonlands. Island in the Sky. Canyonlands is in three parts. Island in the Sky is the best of them, to my way of thinking. Landscape Arch in Arches National Park. And then the final picture is Rocky Mountain National Park and the clouds, and we're at about 11,000 feet. We're already above timberline at this point. And that, my friends, is what you can see in just 18 days in the U.S.